He's in his.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
This is Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. I want to share a story about who, more than anyone, taught me the importance of listening and accountability. It was President Barack Obama. I served in the White House on his national security staff. I got to see him in action, up close, and behind closed doors in the Oval Office. First, he was brilliant, and therefore demanded people really knew their stuff. It was President Obama who grilled me on issues and demanded accountability on what we said and did. That commitment to accountability is exactly the approach I use today, listening to our communities. It's why I've written an opportunity agenda with detailed plans to strengthen Black businesses, increase Black wealth, and provide real opportunities for our youth. Because, as President Obama taught me, you better say what you mean and mean what you say. So that's why I approve this message.
Vote early or on August 6th for Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat for U.S. Senate. Paid for by Alyssa.
All right.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, and we are joined with a terrific group to talk about yet another momentous and action-packed week. We are joined with a reunion of our troika of lawyers, Bill Seikaly, Steve Fishman, and Joel Sklar. We have with us, I believe for the first time, author and freelance writer Darrell Dawsey. Welcome to the show. Labor and community activist Barb Ingalls, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. Well, it looks like we now have 2 complete tickets for the election. Vice President Kamala Harris has picked her running mate for vice president, somebody from the heartland. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who, Fish, you'll appreciate this because he actually signed a proclamation naming Prince Day as an official day in Minnesota. So if you needed any more reasons, in purple ink.
When's Morris Day going to get his props too? We got to give Morris Day his props. Then Dawsey and I'll be happy then once they get Morris Day wild and loose.
Right.
You know?
That's right.
I think for Morris Day, Steve, we're going to need some more time. All right. So, what's everybody's assessment about Tim Walz as far as a pick, and also any surprises that he was the pick?
Made sense to me. It made good sense. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. You haven't talked in weeks. Go ahead, Fish.
Well, you know, it's funny. We all think we're fairly smart. We were in the gym, the 3 of us that always comment on everything, and we were thinking, well, maybe it'll be Josh, or maybe it'll be the senator in Arizona, Kelly. And Walz was coming on, but in all honesty, until he came into the conversation, I never knew his name. I couldn't have told you who the governor of Minnesota was if he offered me $50. But God, I sure like him. He's very well spoken. I like the way he handles the crowd. I like the way he talks in English, and he's not afraid to talk about the issues. I can't imagine anything more fun than a debate between he and J.D. Vance, other than maybe September 10th, assuming Trump shows up. I just think the debates are going to, I don't know what they're thinking about agreeing to debates, especially Trump. But anyway, I thought Walz was a great speaker.
He hasn't.
Darrell,
we'll see if he actually shows up.
No, I think it was a good call. You know, I thought that she had 3 strong candidates. You know, I kind of thought she was leaning toward Shapiro, who I think, you know, would have obviously helped her shore up things in Pennsylvania. I thought Mark Kelly could have been great, you know, especially around issues around the border. But I think Walz is fantastic. I think that you know, he's got a quick wit. You know, he's got a certain everyman kind of appeal. He's kind of got that dad vibe going on that I think even young voters can kind of get behind. So, I all in all, I think she's batting 1,000 so far.
And because age is such an obsession with elections, he's younger than Brad Pitt. So I think that's a really important barometer to have when it comes to that. Barb.
He did an interview a couple weeks ago while this was all still, everyone was still, percolating on it. And he made some really good points about the Midwest, which is all battleground. And he made a really good point that the reason that a lot of these Trump supporters don't trust Democrats is because of the Clinton years, because of NAFTA, because of all of the trade deals that took jobs away from them. And that's what hurt Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton then just pretended that they were just going to vote for her automatically, and the fatal error. I think Walt gets their problems, and I think that he is a really good one to speak to people in his state and in this whole area. He really is like one of us. He reminds me of almost every auto worker that I know. I can't believe that they actually did something this right. He couldn't be more perfect. And unless they have video of him punching a dog or something, I think he's just going to be the perfect candidate forever.
Well, wouldn't that be the governor from South Dakota? I think that's what her thing with
Shooting the dog.
Shooting the dog. Bill.
Shooting the dog.
Yeah. First of all, I think it was a great choice. I love the fact that he was a coach, that he was a high school teacher. He's so relatable and all of that stuff. I do want to talk about this. I think that it was clear at the end it came down to Shapiro or Walz. And I am so fed up with this bullshit about she didn't pick Shapiro because he was Jewish. Joni, my wife, came up with the best line in the world. Yeah, she may not have chosen to put a Jew on the ticket, but she did choose to put one in her bed.
Right.
I think it's really hard to be critical.
And by the way, Allan raising his hand is not showing that he's the Jew in the bed.
But I think that the reporting that's come out, and based on everything I've heard from people who should know, the problem with Shapiro was twofold. One, he is far more conservative or moderate, whatever term you want to put on it. But, his support of school vouchers was a real problem in the world of education.
Yeah.
And I think would have caused a problem there. And number two, if anybody heard him speak the other day at the Philadelphia rally, this is not a number two guy. This is a guy who wants to be number one and is qualified. I mean, he gave a barn burner of a speech.
It was a thrilling.
But the fact of the matter is that he was asking questions during the vetting process about, I want to market this as they get two presidential candidates in one ticket and all of that stuff. And Walz, being the down-home guy he is, said, they asked him, well, what do you want the role of the vice president to be? He said, what does Harris need? And I think those were the reasons. Look at Kamala Harris. It's clear to me is far more than many of us thought she was, and she had become subservient, as vice presidents are supposed to do, to Joe Biden. And I think to ask her to now take somebody who needed equal staging would have been a big mistake. So I think it's a great choice.
I agree with a lot of that. I agree. Somebody said you don't need two first-string quarterbacks on the team. I think Josh Shapiro would have, potentially overshadowed her, and you don't want that. But I do believe there was an element. I'll argue this. There was an element of the Jewish thing there. I was talking to a Dearborn official right afterwards who's Muslim, and he said, you know what? If they had picked, at least we're open to talking to Kamala now. That if she had picked Shapiro, that would have sent a message to us. That was it. And I do think, I'm not saying it was the decision, but I think you're right. I mean, he went in there supposedly saying, well, how do we want to do this? I think we should do it this way. And what's my role and this and that? And while Walt said, what can I do for the ticket? I think that's the guy you want. But I think the Jewish element, there was an element in there. It wasn't the element, but.
Well, I think
Alan,
when you talk about his conservatism, Alan, I think that, more than just the fact that he's Jewish, I think the fact that he's conservative, particularly around, issues in the Middle East, around, the conflict in Gaza. And I think that, there probably was this sense that, I don't think that was the overriding factor, but I think there probably was a sense that this is an issue that we don't want to have to get hit on. We don't want to have to carry, because Joe Biden certainly, got hit around that issue, particularly here. So, I don't think you're wrong that there probably was some calculation around his position, his stance on those issues.
I think it became easy to make a red herring about it because for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think, Darrell, you're right. The opposition or the objection to Shapiro among many Arabs and Muslims, especially in the Metro Detroit area, was that he served in the IDF. And secondly, that he was what they perceived to be very hostile toward pro-Palestinian protests on campus, whereas Walz was not. And after all, I would actually argue that most of the people in the Metro Detroit area who would have had a problem with Shapiro are voting for Jill Stein, and actually loved Bernie Sanders. I mean, in Dearborn, he's known as Amo Bernie. I mean, Uncle Bernie. So the idea that it would be just seen as a Jewish line of demarcation, I don't think is really supported by the evidence. And Nancy,
I think. Let me just say real quick.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I think Bernie Sanders is not viewed as really hardcore Israel supporter. I think it's really it's not just
the difference between being a Jew and a Zionist.
Well, and when you say the word Zionist, I find that it has been weaponized to take a concept and then add in racist, colonizer, all this kind of stuff, when the definition of Zionism is somebody who believes in the state of Israel and believes in a Jewish state. And it's been broadened and weaponized that people say that's my feeling about that. But anyways, we may disagree with that. So,
all right, Nancy.
I just want to. I only have one thing to add, and that is, first of all, I feel like this might put Pennsylvania in danger. But what I don't know about politics could fill a room. But the other thing is, I'm really mourning that we will not be able to refer to Josh Shapiro as Barack Obama, because that was like probably the single best nickname for him. Because he has that speaking style that seems like it was completely modeled on Obama. And somebody said, yeah, they call him Barack Obama, and I just died.
See, I thought, Nancy, that by him not being on the ticket, Pennsylvanians would be appreciative of the fact that he's going to be their governor moving forward. He seems as though he's got a bit of bipartisan support there, and so the campaign isn't stealing him away.
No, but I do worry that it could. I mean, depending on how the rest of the campaign goes, it does. I do worry that it's not in the bag for the Democrats, and I feel like it might have been before.
Do you think that given how the rhetoric was prior to the announcement of Walz and how people feel strongly about Shapiro, that Harris might pick him for her cabinet, maybe Secretary of State, UN ambassador?
One job at a time. Let's win the election and then worry about that. That's what the transition period is for, is to think about that. But I mean, I'd love to see Pete Buttigieg move up in the world. And I mean, if they could just make a full-time job for him to go on Fox News and humiliate those their idiot hosts, that would be spectacular. But I realize that's unrealistic.
And all the stations.
All the stations.
All the stations.
Yeah.
All the networks.
He's good at that. So he doesn't. He really doesn't lose his cool. Go ahead.
So today, to me, I actually use the Lapeer litmus test as to whether Tim Walz would play in a place like Lapeer, and I guess you could just say the same thing about Michael Moore and Davison. And he definitely brings that to the ticket. Somebody who's credible. I think for those people in the mid-Michigan I-69 line who haven't been poisoned by Trump, and who will give a fair shake of a bygone time that was civil and genteel, I think he's going to score a lot of points. Well, the Harris-Walz train seems to be heading westward now, Arizona, Nevada, California this weekend. And it looks like she is actually, or they are doing quite well in Arizona, Nevada, and maybe even in Georgia after Trump's high praise for Governor Kemp the other day. But Michigan is certainly considered by both campaigns to be a major force. And that was evident by the fact that Harris-Walz were here the day after the announcement, and so was seemingly stalking the Democratic ticket, J.D. Vance. Both of them in the Metro Detroit area. Did anyone go to the rally?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, like I'm gonna stand out in 95-degree heat to wave at a camera somewhere. No, I
was offered tickets and I couldn't go.
Yeah,
I was very sad because I usually miss those things as hard as I can.
I'm sorry, Barb. Did you say you had tickets?
I was given a pass, but I couldn't use it. I had eye surgery this week, so it's like I would have been like this, looking like the problem. I would have been knocked down by Secret Service. So, but everyone I know that went said it was exactly like it looked on TV. It was just like this crazy, happy, positive, even with the heat and even with all crowded and overselling and everything else. It just looked. They said it was magical.
I would have gone.
So the plane was really there, Barb. I love the plane. Fish.
I think the best thing that can happen to us and the Democrats is for J.D. Vance to show up whenever it's possible.
Yep.
Because the more things keep coming out, it's hard to believe in this day that you would put a guy like that on any ticket without having vetted him a little bit at least. And the things that are coming out, that article in the Times where she's transgender, I'm not sure what she is now, the one who works in the defender office, and those texts back and forth. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. And everywhere he goes, he's so completely uncomfortable on his feet. I mean, I wonder how he got. I guess Peter Thiel carried him through, right? Peter
Thiel it was Peter Thiel's money, and apparently he was vetted by Don Jr., which tells me something. Yeah, exactly.
Probably did some Adderall together, and he thought that was just fine.
But I think anytime he shows up anywhere, I really, I just can't. I just love the idea. Them at all.
I love the idea, Steve, that if Kamala wants to get Walz's attention, she just says coach. And if you want to get Vance's attention, you say couch. And that kind of takes care of everything. Nancy.
I just want to point out that, I mean, kind of like what I said before, your VP candidate should balance you to some extent. I mean, you don't want somebody who's 50%, but somebody who kind of like fills in your the holes that you need to fill. Now, what do we know about the 2020 election? It was lost in the suburbs, places like Oakland County, and it was lost because suburban women cannot stand Donald Trump, right? I mean, there are obviously, we've heard white women went for Trump in greater numbers, but speaking for this suburban woman, white woman, and probably thousands, tens of thousands more in Oakland County, we can't stand that motherfucker. And so who do they pick but a guy that is even more unlikable by actual female people? And I ran across this quote here it was by Amanda Marcotte in Salon, and she was talking about going to some Vance event last week. And it was kind of funny because she said the upside was that there was really no line to use the ladies' room because there were women there, but not nearly enough of them to cause a backup in the bathrooms. But she said there was one kind of diversity in this small but weirdly intense crowd. Every type of white man that gets a hasty swipe left on his dating profile was in attendance. Roided out dudes with bad tribal tattoos. Older men radiating bitter divorce energy. Men with enormous beards that have never known the touch of a trimmer. Skinny fascists wearing expensive suits despite the oppressive heat. And this one's my favorite. Glowering loners staring at the two women under 40 like cats watching birds out a window. I mean, that to me is kind of JD Vance's people. And you know, given the things he's only been on the ticket for 3 weeks now, and he's already said stuff that's offensive to even his wife. You know, I mean, talking about how, well, you know, Usha is a Indian woman, but I love her anyway. You know,
She's not white, but I love her anyway.
Right. You can imagine he's got mixed race children. So one day he says, "You're white." Next day he says, "Hey, today you're Indian. You guys work it out. Work it out."
And that's why I don't understand why they're trying to take this approach where they're questioning, you know, Kamala Harris's racial identity. I'm like, you have biracial.
Who cares? Who cares why they just encourage them to do it? This is a Democratic conspiracy that got JD on the ballot. It's the best thing that ever happened to us. Let us not complain. Let us not look this gift horse in the mouth. It is the best thing. That and Trump's meltdown yesterday, best thing that's happened to Democrats.
We've got video. We have video.
We've got video.
Okay. Spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King.
Whoa. No. Hold on, all right? Let's be careful comparing yourself to Martin Luther King here. I know you were both investigated by the FBI, but that's about it. Do not try to say that you were more popular.
When he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything. You look at it, and you look at the picture of his crowd, my crowd, we actually had more people.
Probably not the best answer, but it could have been worse. Trump could have been like, and out of nowhere, MLK decided he was black. When did that happen?
I feel like all the things that Republicans accuse Democrats of doing and being and so forth this is another truism you see online a lot. Every accusation is a confession. It's like the dementia thing about Biden. He's off his rocker. He's nuts. It's like you look at quotes at clips like that, and you think this guy is not playing with a full deck. You know, not even half a deck.
So who listened to his press conference? And by the way, you noticed that there has been a de-orangization process there?
Yes, he looked very pale yesterday. And he's spending a lot of time in Florida. Not that I would ever want to see that guy poolside.
Or actually, I think he's just spending a lot of time indoors. Allan,
we have another video from that press conference, and the New York Times has written a front page story saying that he claims that he was on a helicopter in 2018 with Willie Brown, and the helicopter almost crashed, and that Willie Brown was trashing Kamala. And they've talked to the people on the helicopter, said it didn't even close. There was nothing like that happening, and it was Jerry Brown, not Willie Brown. But
oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I know Willie Brown very well. In fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. We thought maybe this is the end. We were in a helicopter going to a certain location together, and there was an emergency landing. This was not a pleasant landing, and Willie he was a little concerned. So I know him pretty well. I mean, I haven't seen him in years, but he told me terrible things about her.
And they talked to Willie Brown, the New York Times, and he said that's total bullshit. First, he wasn't on the helicopter. And then Newsom was on the helicopter, said it didn't come close to crash. There was nothing like that. And that he made up. And Willie Brown said, I have nothing but good things to say about Kamala.
How do you
Brown?
I mean,
another to Trump.
How do you confuse Willie Brown and Jerry Brown? You know,
they're both very well, by the way.
I mean, they're both roughly the same age, but they could not be. They are chalk and cheese of, you know, in every.
Willie Brown's 90, I think.
Yeah, well, Jerry Brown's not a.
He's got to get close.
Yeah. So yeah, he's getting there. But I mean, still, it's like, and this whole thing about you know, that the darker corners of their, you know, slime machine. You hear this talk about how Kamala Harris slept her way to the top because, after all, she was Willie Brown's girlfriend. It's like, well, you know what? I was Bruce Fishman's girlfriend for a while, and I was this other guy's girlfriend, and all these, and nobody ever accused me of sleeping my way to the top. Probably, I mean, women have boyfriends when they're young before they get married.
What did Gloria Steinem say? If all these women slept their way to the top, why aren't there more women on the top?
Yeah.
I mean, again,
I should pick better men to sleep with. That's my problem.
How does that even stick against the guy who
slept
with a porn star while his wife? I mean, there's not. Listen, man.
Exactly.
The ooze just won't. It won't work this time. It's just. It's all going to boomerang. You know what I mean?
I have a question. I have a question about Tim Walz. They're trying to make an issue over the fact that he retired. When he retired, he was that rank. A couple months later, they lowered it for benefit purposes because he didn't complete the course, but he left under that rank. And then he did say, he said these guns, these weapons or whatever, that I use in war or whatever. The guy trained. He went to during the Iraq War. He was stationed in Italy, which isn't, and he never said I was here or there. But they're really trying to catch him. They're trying to swift boat him, basically.
Go ahead, Steve.
Whoops. Let me.
There's only one problem with all that. All they got to do every time that happens is just ask Trump about his bone spurs. Because remember, he's my age. Okay, all of us know what he was doing. He was a complete and total draft dodger because his people had money. The rest of us either went or we stood for the draft lottery and got lucky like me and got a high number. So who's he kidding? He's going to talk about the guy 24 years of service and he's got bone spurs? Come on.
I know. Well, he thinks.
Yeah, Steve got my line. The other thing that I think that we've got to mention about Trump is this obsession with crowd size. As one of the female commentator yesterday said, her mom said, any man who's obsessed with size is very insecure. And I think that's really demonstrating itself here. I think that Trump has become I think he's always been insecure, but he's very insecure about who he's dealing with in Kamala Harris. I think that the idea of a woman, much less a black woman, kicking his ass in this election is something that is terrifying him. I think his campaign had a pretty good approach and plan on how to deal with it, and he won't have it. He is going to use his system to beat down this person. And I'm for the first time in a long, long time, I'm actually looking forward to this election.
Shout out to Bill's son for name dropping Creedence Clearwater Revival with Fortunate Son there. Fish.
My question, maybe you guys have talked about this when I was on vacation there. What do you guys think the odds are that his performance in the debate on September the 10th, assuming he shows up, will mirror Biden's to the extent that everybody's going to go, what the fuck? What do you guys think? Darrell,
Actually, if Biden would have been awake during the first debate, I think they would have said that about Trump. I mean, I think Trump had a terrible debate against Biden, but Biden's was so bad.
But I'm thinking more. I'm not thinking so much of what he says. I'm thinking of the way he looks. You look at this guy now, and those of us who are in this age group, we understand the difference of it. If I look at a picture of myself 8 years ago, and I'm in the gym every goddamn day, the guy's never been in a gym in his life. But you look different, you talk differently, you react differently. He's an old man, and I just wonder. I'm wondering what you guys think. Do you think there's a possibility that this will come across so vividly that even some of his own, not the crazy MAGAs, but some of the other people are going to say, wait a minute, this guy has a decent chance of not surviving another 4 years, let alone being sentient enough to do anything. What do you guys think? Do you think there's a decent chance that might happen?
Yes.
It's possible.
Listen, I think that every day that goes by, I hate to confess this, until he got shot at, I was turning on the news every night, looking at Joni and saying, I'm turning on the news to see if somebody got to Trump. And then I felt very guilty afterwards.
It was you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna paraphrase Rick James.
Barbara's going to put me on her shoulders if it was me. But I want to point out that I'm now waiting for him to have his incredible snap, his snap with reality, because I think that's where he's headed. I think Trump is beginning to lose it. The chant that the emperor has no clothes is now being heard, and I think he's going to have a meltdown. Whether it'll be on the
Darrell,
debate.
Darrell, what's your Rick James paraphrase?
Two things. First, I think the snap happened back when he was comparing Nikki Haley to Nancy, confusing Nikki Haley with Nancy Pelosi. I really do. I think he's been sliding down a slope for a while now, to be honest. I was going to say though, as to his debate performance, I was going to say, to paraphrase the great Rick James, Adderall is a hell of a drug. and so I don't doubt that he will come out there, highly caffeinated or whatever it is he is, to come out there energized. They did it the first debate. So I think what the issue is now, though, he doesn't have the contrast. I mean, Biden is visibly worn. He's aged. Yes, he had a bad debate, even though the substance of a lot of what he had to say, I rocked with. I thought Joe Biden made great points in that debate. His performance, though, his look, his delivery, everything was just horrible, and it reminded you of just how old he was. I think when you sit Trump next to Kamala Harris, I think that same thing is going to be readily.
That's what I think.
This man, but I do think, I think he'll probably be a little amped. I mean, I think they know how to throw a battery in his back to get him ready for those kinds of appearances. I just think
the transcript of the debate looked differently. The genius of you citing Rick James, though, Darrell, is that if you remember in the Chappelle clip, what Rick James did to Eddie Murphy's couch is exactly what J.D. Vance does to couches.
Allegedly.
So allegedly.
And no one cares about the glove.
Let's go to a commercial, Alan.
All right, let me find that here. Whoops, I am sorry.
You can't work for my TV station, Alan.
Yes, I am. Okay.
This is Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. I want to share a story about who, more than anyone, taught me the importance of listening and accountability. It was President Barack Obama. I served in the White House on his national security staff. I got to see him in action, up close, and behind closed doors in the Oval Office. First, he was brilliant, and therefore demanded people really knew their stuff. It was President Obama who grilled me on issues and demanded accountability on what we said and did. That commitment to accountability is exactly the approach I use today, listening to our communities. It's why I've written an opportunity agenda with detailed plans to strengthen Black businesses, increase Black wealth, and provide real opportunities for our youth. Because, as President Obama taught me, you better say what you mean and mean what you say. So that's why I approve this message.
Vote early or
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
So we had our own election here on Tuesday with the primaries. Quite a few results came out. Going around the horn, any of the results grab you in particular? Yeah, Alan.
I thought the Shreve Thanadar thing was interesting because, I mean, Adam Hollier was probably the only candidate who could have bumped him off, and he was bumped off because of bad signatures on the ballot. Shreve Thanadar is, I think what he did he bombarded. I mean, I'm in his district. He bombarded the voters. I got endless flyers in the mail with, Mary Waters, the city council member got convicted in a bribery scheme. Mary Waters is anti-gay marriage. On the airwaves, he was just bombarding people with that. And I think people outside, I think she got at least 25,000 votes. I think most of them from Detroit, but people outside of Detroit would see that who don't know her and go, why in the hell would I vote for somebody like that? And interestingly, what he did, I think he spent the taxpayers' money for all the positive flyers that he could pay for, that the taxpayers pay for, but he paid for the negative ads. And all these Congress members have money to send out bullshit and tell you how great they are. And so it didn't surprise me that he was going to kill her in that race. So
yeah.
What about that? What about? Yeah, go ahead, Darrell, please. Darrell, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I thought that was disappointing for that reason too. I mean, he didn't do shit, and I think that Detroit is would have probably been better off making a change, but money. This is the way that money impacts our elections, even on the local level. So I think guys like that they have a built-in advantage. I would love to see there be real representation in that position. And I was like anybody else. I was willing to give the guy a chance, but he represents folks I know too, and they say they don't. You hear from him election time. You heard a lot from him right now, but when it was time to really address some of the substantive issues of some of the people in the neighborhoods or the places that he represents, a lot of those folks.
Darrell, I happen to agree with you. He has the advantage because two reasons: one, he has money, and two, he's an incumbent. But I think he could easily be beaten in a primary. But you have to understand, from a political analysis, to beat an incumbent in a primary, people have got to get together and say, okay, one of us is going to run. We're going to figure out who's the strongest and put them up. And the reason he wasn't beaten this time was because of an inept opposition, not because he's so good.
Yeah.
He shows up to a lot of ribbon cutting things. I see him everywhere.
Sure.
Or whatever.
That's all John James does either. I mean, those two guys, if there's a camera there, they'll show up.
Yeah.
It seems like, in looking at what happened in the Senate races, Hill Harper, if he really wanted to show that he was involved, he should have probably run for Michigan 13 against Shreve. That would have made a lot more sense. He could have paid his dues, and then later on, perhaps run for the Senate seat. Instead, he got clocked by Alyssa Slotkin.
No,
every county in the state.
I will never vote for another training on the job potential politician. It's like being a United States senator is not like being an actor. I don't care that you went to Harvard. It's legislating is hard work and it requires certain skills. And I will always vote for the person who did their time, even on a city council, over somebody like, hey, I'm famous. I think I want to be a senator next. So, go.
The moment that Slotkin gets sworn in, I can see her getting assigned to some serious Senate committees because of her experience and her expertise.
Right.
There's no way Hill Harper would have been assigned those kinds of prize committees right out of the gate. So, the fact that this is really, as you said, such an important position. We forget there's only 2 senators per state. Allan.
I think it's interesting. I would have done the opposite of I would have played up my stardom on TV and stuff like that. He wanted to show himself as being more substantive, which, look, he's got a law degree from Harvard. He went to school with Obama. He said that Obama did not want to come to campaign for him because Obama didn't want to get involved with the Democratic machinery, go against it. He concentrated in Detroit. I think his idea was, I'll get the black vote in Detroit and that'll be enough. I don't think he went around the state very much, realizing it wasn't a congressional race. It was a statewide race. He should have been everywhere. He should have been in Marquette, should have been in Grand Rapids. He spent a lot of time here in Detroit and maybe a little bit out in the suburbs there, but not much. And he just didn't run that great of a campaign. And look, Alyssa Slotkin was anointed by the Democratic Party. So he had that already going for him, going against him. And he got clobbered.
He
Yeah,
was
no,
he
I'm
was
with
on
Nancy.
CSI. He was on CSI Miami, and he got out acted by the lab equipment. I mean, yeah.
I'm with Nancy. I would have liked to have seen him, sort of get his hands dirty, in politics a little bit at a more localized level. I think that it's a lot to ask a guy to go from well, not obscurity, but from no political experience, being a U.S. senator. Here's what I do hope. I think that his campaign brought a lot of positive to the city. I think that he had a very positive message. I think he's done some things in terms of organizing in the community around issues like Black male mental health. And, I think he's picked up the baton on some issues that a lot of folks have not, and a lot of people have glossed over. And I hope that, my hope is that he continues to do that this wasn't just about, him getting to the U.S. Senate, but that, he continues to be a real force for good and positive work in the community. And I think that, his time will come. I mean, I think he can run against Shree and have a very good chance of beating him. I think that there are a lot of folks in the city, who would vote for him. And that's the sort of race where his approach to campaigning would be a lot more effective.
Right. I agree.
Darrell,
He's a good guy. He's very bright.
Yeah.
He's a really good person, but it was over his head in this race.
Darrell, let me ask you a question. I mean, part of this was certainly before Biden stepped down and Harris took over the top of the Democratic ticket. There was a time when it seemed as though the African American vote in Detroit was not very motivated because of Biden being at the top of the ticket. Do you think that, in a sort of strange and ironic way, with Harris then taking over, it seems as though that motivation came back? I mean, the kind of enthusiasm and the vigor among the African American community in Detroit really was rejuvenated. And do you think that as a result, Harper's claim to try to rejuvenate backfired, or just simply was seen as irrelevant at that point?
I don't know. I don't know that, I don't think that she took any wind out of his sails. I mean, I think his campaign was what it was, but she absolutely energized Black voters in Detroit and metropolitan Detroit. There's no question about that. I think that she's had a great effect on people's enthusiasm. I think folks want to get out. I have friends who weren't going to do much for Biden. They were going to vote for him, but they weren't going to get out there and knock on doors or make phone calls. I think that she's activated a lot of those kinds of people. I don't think though that takes away from anything that Hill Harper. There's enough room if folks want to vote for both of them. There's enough room for both of them. I just don't think that he captivated voters the way she has.
All right, Bill.
Yeah, I agree with everything Darrell said. And I also think that if he would have done something like run for Congress rather than the Senate, or for the House rather than the Senate, he would have been much better off. He did not follow the rule. If you want to eat an elephant, it's one bite at a time. Taking on an entire state is not one bite. That I think he just made a tactical mistake there. But I also wanted to talk about the excitement in the Harris campaign. My daughter was a high school senior when Barack Obama ran in 2008, and she and I were very, very, very engaged in that campaign. Very exciting. I believe that the Harris campaign right now has as much, if not more, energy than the 2008 with Obama. Obama, at least at the same point in time. Now, by the time Obama got elected, it was over the top. I don't remember the last time people felt that good. But in terms of, where in the campaign around the Labor Day time, Kristen and I were walking door to door. I think we did about 9 weeks of it. And it was exciting. There was a lot of energy. But the energy I'm seeing right now with the Harris campaign is greater than at the same time in 2008. And I think she's on fire. Now, look, she's got to run almost a perfect campaign to pull this off, just because she started so far behind. but she hasn't made any mistakes that I've seen. You could criticize her for how she handled the people who are interrupted in Detroit, but this didn't get much press coverage. I'll note that she and Walz met with two of the leaders of that protest backstage afterwards. I think that she's doing most of what she needs to do perfectly. And
actually, Bill, I think she met with a couple people from the uncommitted movement, not from the abandoned Biden movement, who weren't going to really vote for her either. So, but the fact that she met with uncommitted, I think, is really important. By the way, the last time people were that excited around here, Bill, was at kickoff during the NFC Championship game last year. So, just a point of correction on that. Alan, or sorry, Steve.
Hold on. Let me unmute. There's been a lot of noise coming from Steve. Go ahead, Steve.
I think that the enthusiasm, I think, came from the fact that all of us, I mean, everybody here and their friends and the people they work out with and the people that they go to dinner with, everybody was so depressed at the notion of Biden continuing this campaign, and he strung it out for long enough that when it happened, we can all remember where we were. It's like where you were when they landed on the moon. I mean, we all came in the gym, and all of the Democrats, which is a decent percentage of the people, everybody's, hey, good morning. Oh, what a great day. And I really think that's the thing, the comparison to Obama. I mean, it was exciting, but we're coming back from the dead. Yeah,
it really was.
Scared as too. We were petrified.
The Lazarus movement. That's.
I think it was the equivalent of being constipated for 3 days and finally going to the bathroom and emerging from the bathroom and going,
only a Jew who eats matzah on Pesach would be.
That is definitely a commentary about our age group. Okay?
Yes, appreciation for a good movement.
I'm not sure the young,
a different kind of movement. But here, I was going to say, here's what you're also dealing with. Here's a little.
Oh no, I don't. I believe it's an inside job.
The shooting was an inside job?
A lot of things aren't adding up. It's very strange.
I think that was a planned job. Anybody with any common sense knows that was a planned job.
Planned by who?
The Dems.
The left.
The deep state. Obama is involved in this.
You think Obama set up the assassination attempt?
I think that he surely knew about it.
See what? Beard that has never seen a trimmer. There's one of those guys right there. So.
Oy. Well, on a more serious note, what about the idea moving into this election and, I mean, to borrow from Dylan Thomas, the high unlikelihood that Trump will go gentle into that good night? There are already investigations occurring. The United States Department of Justice monitoring elections for compliance in 3 Michigan cities, Clyde Township, Fenville, and Allegan County, and Covert Township in Van Buren County. On top of that, we have Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, who's investigating Elon Musk for creating a pro-Trump PAC that is mining voter data collection issues. And I guess in the case of Arizona, we got former Trump attorney Jenna Ellis, who is willing to cooperate with state prosecutors in the fake electors case, of which I think there was already one conviction. How big of an issue do you see this moving forward to November 6th and beyond before January 20th?
Are you talking about like the people who may refuse to serve the
refusal of certification, refusal to certify, tampering with the system, making allegations again regarding fraud and corruption in the system?
I think it's a real threat. And I think it's something that, you know, the Democrats have to be ready for. And I have to think that I'm not the only person who has this idea, that there's got to be some kind of plan B that is at least in the works, you know, in terms of who's going to, you know, who we sue, how we're going to, you know, litigate this in court, because this is something that's going to happen. I mean, the Wayne County canvassers, everybody was shocked when they refused to certify, and they later did. But those 2 people are now considered, well, one of them's dead. He died of COVID, William Hartman. and the other one is Monica Palmer, who was not re-nominated by the party, and she's since moved back to West Michigan. But the point being that the people who are in charge of the state Republican Party now are not in the mood to hear from people who are willing to accept that Donald Trump might lose this election. I mean, they're ready to go all the way.
Steve.
I think the name we should all keep in mind is Mark Elias. He's an elections expert down in his law firm, and I've seen him interviewed on MSNBC a number of times. What you're saying, that we better be ready, they're ready. I believe they're ready, and I believe they're ready in every state.
Good.
And I think that, we won. They won, what, 92 or 84 out of 85 of those crazy lawsuits that were filed back in 2020, and I think they're ready for all of this stuff. I really do.
I'm glad.
I think another thing, though, that people I know that are working for the elections, the county clerks and all this stuff, they're very worried about the threat of violence, the threat of what happened at Huntington Place, whatever it's called now, of that happening again. I counted votes the last 3 elections. I worked on the AV board. And you walked in and there were like 1 million cops, and it never occurred to me. It was just like, oh, there they are, whatever. But you couldn't go in or out without going through them. And I think that they're going to try to get even more out there. But people are kind of worried. And I think it's also going to hurt participation. Because all of everywhere they need people to count the votes. They need volunteers to come in and do this. And just my little thing, you get paid to do it. So if you wanted to do it,
are they still looking for people for the AV boards? Because I did it in 22, and it was not a pleasant experience, but I got it done. So
it's a long day.
Yeah,
they pay you. Yeah, as far as I know, they are. And I'll send you. I know you're not in Oakland County, but I have Oakland.
Oh, you were in the Oakland. Oh,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was down in TCF Center still at the time.
Nancy. She's Barb Ingalls of the Oakland County Ingalls.
Having grown up off of Mack Avenue, on the east side, I'm no huge fan of the Detroit Police Department. I'm gonna just keep it real.
Right.
But I have never been happier to see those motherfuckers from the gang squad come out than I was when they were counting those votes at the TCF Center.
They really were.
That was a beautiful sight to see. And this is not Florida. You're not going to pull that downtown Detroit. You're just not going to get away with trying to suppress black people's votes that way. That's just not going to happen.
And you could tell those people that were down there demonstrating and banging on the windows, they were most definitely, shall we say, Brighton adjacent.
Well, the same folks you saw pressed up against the wall on the windows on January 6th at the Capitol, right? So, I was definitely glad to see that. I don't think that's something that we're going to have to worry about. But what does bother me, this Elon Musk thing, I think people really need to pay a lot closer attention to that. I mean, this is the real issue there was that they were telling people that they would take them to a website that would register them to vote.
Right.
And then, and in the swing states, they would capture these people, and then they would drive them to places where they would collect more information from them, and then they wouldn't even take them to the website to register them to vote. So, it's not just about the data collection, although that's a huge issue as well, but it's also about, this whole bait and switch thing where I think they feel like if we can, cut people off at the pass. It was just, the same way folks were worried about what would happen with some of these drop boxes, folks setting drop boxes on fire and all these kinds of things. It's going to cut these folks off at the pass. So, and I think the fact that, Elon Musk is involved, a guy who is, deeply involved in so many of our, with so many government contracts, so much government business, that's very, very disturbing. So, good on Dana Nessel.
Well, as someone who lived through the 9/11 era, I would have no problem if they decided to diversify the focus of the counterterrorism task forces and use them on these folks as well. Bill.
I think that, I think the real danger here is, they came very close to not giving up power in the last election. And that was really on a relatively short timeline where they weren't as organized. I'm concerned about how organized they could be in the next round. That the recruitment, if you read some of the stuff online, the recruitment of both people in the military and the police department to stop this fake election, this stuff can be terrifying. And you look at the guy who introduced J.D. Vance at his first rally that Trump wasn't at, and he said if Trump and Vance aren't elected, we're talking about a civil war.
Right.
I think a lot of that crowd is really thinking that way. I think they underestimate people on the other side. I think that they think we're a bunch of woke, a P word that I won't use. And
I don't think crawling around on your belly in the woods out in Adrian, Michigan is going to set you up to come deal with what's going to happen to your ass on 7 Miles.
Bill,
you know what I'm talking about, Big Fish. You know what it is.
Bill, are you suggesting that
Al-Qaeda.
do you suggest that they see us as pusillanimous? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying.
There's an interview.
That's what I thought.
Nancy, you want to translate?
There's an interview on Fresh Air about 2 weeks ago, and I wish I should look it up and see who they were, but they were talking about the young men who really find themselves identifying with J.D. Vance, and against all of it's about against wokeism. It's against women taking their place, their rightful place in the world. And those are the guys. They're a little bit better educated. It's not like these nitwits out in, pretending that they're marching around and pretending that they're a militia. It's the people that are a little bit smarter and a little bit more like into Elon Musk and these kind of things. And those guys are a little bit scarier because they're not stupid. They're just hateful.
Okay. Actually, they're scary at every level, Barb. That's my point.
Yeah.
At every level. They think we'll back down. I've been confronted 2 or 3 times with these issues in which I say, look, I don't know who you think you're talking to.
Right.
I ain't always been a lawyer, and if you think that I'm not willing to fight just as hard for my freedoms as you are, you got another guest coming. And
same.
You try to take it away from me, I'm going to be there.
Yeah,
I may be old, but I know how to fight dirty because I'm too small to fight clean.
That's what I wonder when I hear this, Civil War talk. Who are you going after? Like, who do you think you're going to come after? And be successful in any kind of. I mean, you're okay. You want to pop up and ambush a bunch of old people at the grocery store or something like that. I mean,
Darrell, wait a minute. I happen to be one of them old people. Let's not encourage that kind of behavior.
No. I mean, don't. And believe me, I know a few old people who will be ready to answer that. But but my point is that this so-called movement that these guys have, there's no politics to this. There's no agenda here. This is about grievance and hate. And so how are you going to? How can you even see yourself as a political movement? I mean, there was even with the Civil War, there was a confederacy. There was an actual confederacy of states. This is just a bunch of random ragtag assholes, who think that their AR-15 is going to change the way people vote.
Darrell, do you remember the, I don't know if it was photographs or video during the trial of the guys who were in the Whitmer kidnapping plot?
Wolverine Watch.
And they were like, and they were doing their maneuvers out on somebody's farm, and they're like running, run behind the barrel and so.
Well, it reminded me of the Al-Qaeda jungle gym training recruitment video. But in seriousness, though, I mean, there is the situation going on in the UK right now.
Yeah.
What started off as seemingly a vendetta based on a completely false reporting of what ended up being a Christian Rwandan young man who stabbed 3 young girls to death at a party, turned into what now is a full-on Islamophobic project by fascists and racists marching through many cities around England with a certain level of impotence on the part of a new prime minister. So that's, I think, what is a matter of concern to see if people are taking notes based on that. And these days with social media, it's quite easy to. Barb.
But I don't know if you've seen the footage of the counter protesters. They had twice as big crowds. Brighton, it was just beautiful to see people that came out.
Yeah.
It was, and people
very encouraging.
Very encouraging. And I think this is no time to sit on the fence in England or in the United States. All of this demonization of the other, right? They're dark. They don't speak our language. You know, you don't want to say, well, they pick our food. You know, they move in next door to us. They're our neighbors. Their kids go to school with us. It's just all about terror, and it's about rape. And the worst possible thing, and it's every one of us has to fucking stand up and say no. And I think that the counter demonstration showed the way. We have to really just be ready to get out there and say no, like we did with the George Floyd. You know, people got out of their houses during COVID and put on their masks and walked, you know, for justice. I think that we just always have to be ready to. There's more of us than there are of them. I'm not usually pessimistic, but
no. But you know, I mean, just to end on this, Amanda Marcotte was reporting that she went to both rallies in Philadelphia, J.D. Vance's and Kamala Harris's, and she said at J.D. Vance's there were 200 people, of which probably at least 20% were journalists, and the Kamala Harris rally was 12,000 people. So maybe there's something to be said about middle school math. Anyway, Alan, let's go to our final segment.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
All right, we are at that segment. Darrell. Oh, actually, Steve.
Yeah, just because I'm having problems with the computer. I have two.
Yeah, okay.
My first schmuck of the week is, of all people, Vladimir Putin, who was a little bit surprised when the Ukrainians invaded his country and took over a town called Kursk, I think it is. And they have a big meeting of their Security Council, and there's criticism coming from people about, I thought you said this was going to be an easy little deal. So he's my first schmuck of the week. My second schmuck of the week has been dead for a long time. But if you read the David Frum article in the Atlantic today, my second schmuck of the week is Richard Nixon. Why? Because only Richard Nixon could have been so unlucky to have lived when he lived. If he did what he did now, not only would he still be president,
Yes.
Okay. Nixon got him. Nixon got him from the grave.
Well,
by the way,
froze, I think
today is the 50th anniversary of Richard Nixon resigning, the only president to have resigned from a term of office. And at exactly 12 noon, Gerald R. Ford was sworn in as president of the United States. So quite timely with Fish raising Nixon. Darrell, who's your schmuck of the week?
Well, you know what? My schmuck of the week is somebody I want to carry over, actually, from because I wasn't with you guys last week, so I want to carry somebody over. My schmuck is Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions for bringing in Hulk Hogan to talk at the training camp. Hulk Hogan is an inveterate racist. He said, he's in addition to using the N-word, he just most recently fired a young African-American woman as a spokesperson for his crappy little beer when he found out that she was black. And I just felt like that sent the absolute wrong message. The city is so excited about this team. You have such a great and diverse fan base, a fan base that is hardcore in the city, and to bring in somebody who just, slapped so many Detroiters across the face with his language, with his attitude, with his racism, I thought was really unfortunate and put a real damper on my enthusiasm for the Lions. So I just wanted to say that, reaching back, that's my schmuck of the week.
And it looks like the Lions felt equally unenthusiastic last night, Darrell. So very, very, very much.
I watched a little bit of that exhibition game, and it just reminded me of what the old Lions were. It's just so painful, even though there's no starters really. There, it just seemed like, oh, this is the old Lions. They look like crap.
50 years ago, my husband, now husband, Bob, and I had one of our very early dates, and we held hands and we watched Nixon's speech. Wow. It was the most romantic thing. I never would have married him if he had liked Nixon, but we just sat there and just like, you know, give me a little kiss now and then. That is a true story. So that's how I knew I had found the best man in the world. My schmuck this week is Thomas Friedman, who wants us to stop being so mean to the Republicans.
Oh, God.
They're weird. Quit doing that. It's more fun to point out what doofus assholes they are than I've had in a really long time. And after this horrible year of worrying about what was going to happen, if we can't relax and call them weird, it just shows how out of touch Thomas Friedman is. So he is my schmuck.
That is so absolutely true. And the idea, you know, you got to love Michelle Obama, but when she said, when they go low, we go high, that's she's no longer in the building. She's left the building. And now when they go low, we're going to go just as low as they do. You know, how did Donald Trump call Nancy Pelosi and say, I'm sorry to hear that your husband was attacked by a madman in your home? No, he made a fucking joke about it. So if these people are pissed that we're making jokes about JD Vance and his couch, then it's like tough shit. Go tell him to the complaint department. Talk to the hand. You know, whatever you have to do.
Maybe I misunderstood Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high. I thought she was talking about the jugular.
Well, I think we found it.
Yeah, too. Okay.
All right. See, I thought she was talking about toking. So you know, I was way off. Okay, Nancy.
Let's see. I think we already kind of chewed up and spit out JD Vance. So I'm going to go with something a little more amorphous today and name the United States healthcare system. I read a story this morning in Sports Illustrated that said the American athletes, and not the rich ones, not the Simone Bileses and the Katie Ledeckis, but a women's rugby player was the first person that they focused on for this piece, are taking advantage of the free medical care that France is providing in the Olympic Village. And this Olympic rugby player, this American rugby player, not only she went for something related to her sport, but then she made an appointment with a gynecologist and got a free pap smear. Then she went to the optometrist or the ophthalmologist and got a new glasses prescription. And I believe she also had her teeth cleaned by the dentist. And, you know, this is the kind of care. French people pay a lot of taxes, I will grant you. We pay a fuck ton to our insurance premiums if we don't have them picked up by our employer. So it's like, this is the kind of healthcare that the rest of the country and certainly the rest of the world and certainly Western Europe enjoys as simply a given of citizenship. And so, you know, the fact that this Olympic athlete, who had a medal, by the way, I think they were bronze medalists, had to go to the free doctors in the Olympic Village says everything you need to know about how screwed up the American system is.
100%. They make fun of Tim Walz for putting free tampons.
Yeah, exactly.
in the schools. They call them tampon Tim. I think that's a badge of honor.
Yes, I think so too. This is what I'm talking about when I say that they need to. It's like they have lost women, and then they keep pushing them farther away by saying, "Oh, tampon Tim."
Better in the schools for our girls than on your ear after a fake assassination.
Good one.
and coming up on calling him a socialist for providing free lunches and breakfasts.
Yeah,
shame on him.
Nuts. I know.
But I mean, we also, as entertaining as he is, NBC paying Snoop Dogg $500,000 a day plus expenses when you have a badminton player who actually had to do a GoFundMe to make it over there.
Yeah.
And other Olympic athletes who've actually been funding their training using OnlyFans.
Yeah, well, and that's and what is it? Flava Flav is like,
Flava
you know,
Flav
supporting the women's water polo.
The water polo.
Right.
He paid for a person who was losing their home or something like that.
Right.
These guys are stepping up.
That couldn't pay her rent. That couldn't pay her rent.
But
Absolutely.
NBC should be stepping up too instead of, well, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill.
Well, I'm going to go international on this one. I have been seriously offended by what's been going on in the Middle East. And I could name the entire Knesset, I think, but Smotrich, his comments that he thinks that starving the Palestinians in Gaza would be moral until they give the hostages back is so offensive. Not to mention the shipping in a truck. Hundreds of bodies of Palestinians with no tags, no information about them, no information about where they came from, not to mention the raping of Palestinian prisoners being justified, is simply too much to handle. Now, I say that with an understanding that I am a Palestinian, so it's offensive to me. I'm also married to a Jewish woman. I have Jewish members of my family. This is, Alan, an issue about Zionism and the extreme right wing that has become the holders of Zionism. And it's offensive. I don't see how it can be justified. And I certainly hope that in the future, President Harris will take the position that we as Americans simply cannot endorse this type of behavior and can't fund that kind of the kinds of weapons that they're using to defeat them. That's not to say that I think that we ought to abandon the state of Israel. We can't support what's going on there now, and we need to change our policy, and I hope she'll do that.
I want to say, in terms, I agree with what you say in terms, I mean, Smotrich is evil, a human being. I mean, they're just horrible, horrible people. But it's like, when you take that, you say that is the definition of Zionism. That is the worst definition of Zionism. That is the ugliest.
It's the people who control it, Alan. It is the people who are in control of the Zionist movement. Who is in control of the Zionist movement?
Well,
listen, I know that it's an offensive term. I know that it sounds like it's an offensive term when it's used this way. But the fact of the matter is that any concept that Zionism wasn't colonialization and wasn't evil has been eliminated because the people in charge of it are now Netanyahu.
Those people are indefensible. Netanyahu.
They're the ones carrying the banner.
No, I agree.
They're the ones carrying the banner.
Look, there are half of Israel, if not more, are out there. Hundreds of thousands of people have been protesting against those people. Yeah. They are the ugliest of ugliest.
Which is why I don't support the elimination of the state of Israel. I don't believe that their leaders represent their people. And I think that their people might be interested in living with my people in peace. But their leaders aren't. And their leaders aren't doing it. And their leaders are killing my people.
We've got it's a horrible leadership. There's no, okay. Nancy's giving me.
I wonder if American attitudes would be less ambivalent if it wasn't for Abu Ghraib and the ambivalence that the American public showed when that happened.
And look,
anyway,
the prison stuff, horrible in Israel as well with some of those Palestinians. But anyways, on a lighter note, before I had a little leftover clip.
But it's true. Jimmy's always so negative about Mr. Trump. And that makes me so mad and so sad. This man was our president. Hello. And he's about to be our president again, and maybe he's still our president. I don't. Cranky Doodle went to town to call the news a phony. Stuck white letters on red hats and called it macaroni. Doodle went to court to fight a crooked system. Is it really Donald's fault the stormy can't resist him?
Oh, God.
Okay. Anyways, my schmuck of the week is MSNBC and a lot of the other outlets. I mean, I watched this morning, they were talking about all the lies that Trump said during his press conference. They did not mention the most significant. It's the same old, he lied about the crowds, he blah, blah, blah. The New York Times has a front page story talking about him being on the helicopter. He's talking about being on the helicopter with Willie Brown. It was Jerry Brown. He talks about, and he says Willie Brown was telling him how horrible Kamala was. I mean, that is, to me, it's like, and you know what? He might think that's real. I mean,
if
that's
Biden said something like that was completely made up, there'd be like the 25th. It's like, is it time for the 25th Amendment? It's like, come on.
So if only anybody ever complained about the media on this show.
Yeah.
So I'd like to actually preface my schmucks by talking about with the Olympics coming to a close on Sunday, really the wonderful spirit, some of the sportsmanship, some of the achievements. Some of my favorites are this wonderful and adorable scene of, I think it was a gymnastics podium, an Italian gold, an Italian bronze, and a Chinese silver. And the two Italian athletes went to bite their medals, and the Chinese gymnast looks over and she's like, "Oh," because she didn't know that was a thing. And then she quickly goes ahead and joins in. It was just absolutely adorable.
She never watched The Lone Ranger as a child. Or any pirate movie.
I knew that was
the other thing that I thought was just wonderful was, again, with gymnastics for the individual floor exercise, won by Brazilian Rebecca Andrade, and Americans Simone Biles and Jordan Childs as the silver and bronze winners, respectively. The schmuck of the week, as a result of that, is Baltimore Ravens football player Marlon Humphrey, who tweeted that it was disgusting that Simone Biles and Jordan Childs on the podium sort of bowed to the gold medalist, Rebecca Andrade, saying that this is beneath, American athletes and what are they doing in kowtowing. It was a wonderful, natural moment of people with mutual respect for one another and admiration, seeing people like Simone Biles clapping and cheering on competitors, not even just other athletes in other events, but even in her own competition, shows that there's good in the world. It just doesn't exist with Marlon Humphrey. He belongs in the same category as Georgian judo Olympian Goram Tushishvili, who was disqualified from the rest of the Paris Games for his post-match kick to the groin of French rival Teddy Riner. And then after the Georgian drove his leg into Reiner's crotch, he then got up and pushed the two-time gold medalist's head into the ground. So I actually think that Paris has an easy punishment, along with suspension. Make him take a dip in the River Seine.
There you go. Simone Biles seemed like a beautiful person.
She is. She's a wonderful.
She just after everything she's been through, she just puts on her eyelashes and she kicks everyone's ass.
Yes,
she's beautiful. Nice I love her so much, and I don't watch sports.
Well, right. the fact that her eyelashes have more agility than I ever will, I think also speaks volumes. So thank you, Barb. Well, thank you for joining us for another wonderful episode. Let me go ahead and thank first the two people who were on, but they had to leave. I think maybe technical issues. Of course, Joel Sklar and Steve Fishman. But thank you also, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Darrell Dawsey. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And thank you, and with the last word always, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.